Welcome back to AsArt with Nick and John and Kyle today. We post 3 videos a week. Hit that subscribe button to stay updated and go to asart.space for audio and video links. Check out our asart.space store. We got some cool merch. Kyle's actually wearing a cool bear shirt, which he designed. He's such a talented artist. Go to Instagram and follow him, please, and to see all of his cool artwork and stuff he's working on. He's working on a lot of cool projects. But today we're going to talk about Raised by Wolves. We're going to be reviewing season 1. The next video we're going to do is talking about spoilers for season 2 and all the cool Ridley Scott stuff that we're going to talk about. You know, birthing and throw-upping and birthing and more birthing and birthing. All right. Let's jump into it. All right, guys. So what did you think of season 1?
Well, so we've gotten, Nick and I have talked about it. Let's go ahead and hear about Kyle, and we'll jump in as we need to.
Season 1, really a mixed bag. Really a mixed bag.
Would you call this a sci-fi show or a sci-fi
horror show? You know, I'm gonna still say it's sci-fi, to be honest. Okay. You know, but yeah, it's. I started off like loving the show, just because it.
The acting for Mother and Father, actually, I really enjoyed the acting for Mother and Father.
Yes.
I enjoyed a lot of the characters, like when it comes to the acting. Like Marcus had some cool parts. Sue, another cool character, had some really cool parts. Overall, acting, visually, looked fantastic. But we want to talk more story, Kyle. So go for it. Rip it apart, buddy. I'm just kidding.
No. Yeah. So the story was interesting. It's just like a high level sort of view here is that I started off loving it to the point to where actually the opening intro made me cry. Actually, I really enjoyed it. That song is so hauntingly beautiful and sad at the same time. And then you know, through the middle of it, you know, you start to do a little bit more world building, and you realize, well, maybe this planet isn't completely deserted of you know, human life. Perhaps maybe there's something else going on. And then at the end, I mean,
what the F, right? What the F?
This giant snake monster. First off, just the scene where she gives birth haunted me on a visceral level. Okay, like I didn't sleep right that night. The other thing is, when you go to the core of a planet, that's kind of like game over, right? However,
this got really good with Kyle really
other
quick.
side. Like, what's going on? Like, okay. Like, either the Mithraic technology they were handed down by whatever mysterious force is that good, or they like had to make some plot holes for it to work. I don't know. But basically, at the end, you know, they come off on the other side of the planet, by the way, because they went through the core.
To the
that
tropical
snake,
zone, right?
Yeah, basically, you know, bursts forth and flies away using its super magical floaty power. Cool, I guess. Like, I don't know.
I just want to tell you, though, Kyle, John is deathly scared of snakes. And I'm like, you know, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, John's going to freak out because it's a flying snake.
John, don't worry. It's not a snake. It's more like a lamprey. So you're good.
It's not even a snake. It's not just a leech. It's a flying leech snake. Yeah. So, man, it got so. The biggest thing that I thought, so I didn't like the first 2 episodes, I don't think. I was visiting my family, and my dad and my mom and myself, we sat down and watched that. My mom, after episode 1, she's like, yeah, no, I don't need to watch this. My dad's like, you know what, usually you need to give something a few episodes just to even see if you're going to like it or not. And so we just continue watching. I think probably around episode 3 or 4 is when I really was really liking it. So, you know, with what you're saying, Kyle, it's starting to do a little bit more world building and things like that. And you're right, I think it might have been more effective of a show even if they had just stuck with, okay, it is an isolated planet. There's stuff to figure out about it, but it's just this small group. And from a budgetary constraint, that would have been a great choice as well. It's like, you don't have to have a big budget at that point. It's just them figuring out what's going on. But you know what? Ridley Scott and obviously this is not a Ridley Scott production. He's the biggest name attached to it, but it's not his thing. A writer wrote all the episodes. Different people direct all the episodes, or at least good chunks of the episodes. But with Prometheus and then Alien Covenant, it seemed like the same thing was going on. And Ridley Scott couldn't quite figure out what exactly he wanted to do. He started off Prometheus as just a theological type of study, and then you get and then at the end, all of a sudden it becomes alien-like, and then you get into Alien Covenant, and you're getting a little bit more alien, and then it gets back into the quarters again. So, do you think this is a Ridley Scott thing that's kind of going on here? Do you think they just can't figure out what they want it to be, or they're trying to have it be everything?
So, it's interesting because, like, while Ridley Scott, like, his body of work, and also I'm going to say the Scott family, because I believe his son, didn't he direct he
directed a couple, yeah.
So like, there's several, like, creative tropes that they sort of like have in most of their productions, I've noticed, right? Like, so I don't like sci-fi horror, I don't like Alien, but I can respect it as a cinematic, like, milestone in many respects. So some of those tropes are androids, how they portray androids, right? Always with the white blood, their capabilities, right? They have a certain, like, I would almost say, like, personality with their machineness, right? Their human machineness. And it really shows in this show as well, especially with mother and father, but also with the other androids, right, where she's siphoning some of the nutrients from the other one. He's like a
really
lower ranking one. He's like
scenes too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was actually really cool.
So cool. Oh my gosh, I loved some of those scenes. They were just, and the acting from the dude hanging. I'm like, dude, that is C3PO in this universe, man.
Yeah. And you know, just the stuff they do with the lighting and settings and stuff is very much, you know, within their realm. Also, I would dare say, like, some of the storytelling, right?
Is it always biblical? Because this feels very biblical. Yeah, like mother and father, Adam and Eve. There's a snake. I'm just surprised she didn't have to eat a fruit. Like, you know what I mean? It's almost like, you know, it's like, you know, the garden, like, she practically left the Garden of Eden, and now they're like cast out, and, you know, all this stuff. So
you're blowing my mind right now. the giant floaty snake lamprey thing makes sense. All of a sudden, it's the snake.
Are you kidding me?
I didn't know. Oh man, you would be surprised.
Mother and father.
Right.
Adam and Eve, mother and father.
Basically, she takes the forbidden fruit, you know, in the thing, and she's not telling whatever she sinned, and then now that the father knows, they have to go out of the Garden of Eden, and now they're casted out, kind of thing. So yeah,
my entire perception is like almost changed because of that corollary. That's so crazy, huh? Yeah.
Fun.
Wow.
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just
so
curious, I'm just so curious what they're like. I'm so curious what the timeline's going to be now. For like,
that's what I was going to ask as well.
For like the
because they're on the other side of the world, right?
Because like,
they're on the other side of the world.
I had a fun theory when we did it, that because remember when Paul goes into the cave, Kyle, and there's like drawings of like a spaceship leaving. And it's going towards Earth. It looks like, actually, because it looks like the way the plants. We did a whole still frame in the video. I'm like, did someone leave this planet? Because technically, the way they got the technology for the what is she called when she goes into kill mode?
Necromancer.
Yes. So like they said it's written in the books. Like they got it from some other place. So I was curious if people left this planet to go to Earth, and now it's like, whoop, they're coming back.
Red Rover.
Yeah,
that's what kind of like I was getting vibes from. Just like, and then we got the big reveal that the humans that were on the planet are some like different forms of humans. Yeah, like they're like devolving. They the skull they had was what is it called? Oh my gosh.
Neanderthal?
Yes. Neanderthal, right? Yeah. So it's like a different strain of humans. And was the snake feeding off of their intelligence? Because it looks like the snake can only latch itself to intelligent beings. So were they de-evolving so the snake could no longer take control of them, and that was like their feeding source? I don't know. I'm just like, what's going on here? I want to know more info.
And one of the things that always bums me out about shows, and I haven't watched it until recent times, I would not watch a show until I knew it ended and people liked the ending, and then I would start watching it, or it was just coming to an end and people would like the vast majority of it.
He made the mistake with Game of Thrones. We know.
I still love Game of Thrones, but things like Lost, the series Lost, I heard it ended and they did not close up a lot of loops. They just left things open-ended. And that's what I kind of feel like we're getting with the Prometheus line of movies, is that the last one, Alien Covenant, did not do well. And so there might not be more Alien movies. And if that's the case, he left a lot of open things that he just kind of, I guess, figured he'll address a little bit as he goes along in all these. He wanted to do like 3 or 4 other movies, I think. And now we might not get any of those kind of threads kind of, closed, or those loops closed. And so for me, that's kind of a bummer. And I feel like they could do the same thing, especially if Ridley Scott does have a lot of input on this in this series as well. So I'm hoping these things do get closure, but at the same time, it's fun to just explore stuff, and you don't need to answer everything in a movie or a show either. That's not always a good thing to do.
It's true.
But they leave, they if good writers would leave hints, right? You don't mention something unless it's going to be used later on, right? So even like the whole pit thing, right? Like, what's her name? Leah, that girl falls into the pit, right? And then we see her come back, and the rat or the mouse falls into the pit. Supposedly we see, and then we see the mouse come back. Like, is that the intelligent being of the snake that's controlling them at that point? Because like literally, the girl was telling Campion to kill himself, and I think it's just to separate Mother from the only thing she had tied to continuing her mission, right? Like if Campion dies, there's no point for Mother to continue her mission, and she will listen to whatever the snake tells her now at this point.
Oh, interesting. Like so that's a question too. So Nick and I have kind of assumed or made thoughts that it's the snake, but I mean, what do you think the consciousness is on the planet, Kyle? Like, do you have any guesses on that? Because clearly Mother's been spoke to. We have the little girl running around. We have the mouse that's back. Like,
Marcus has been
what do you
spoke
think
to.
the higher be? Yeah, especially. And Nick pointed out the guy that had like the Monty Python helmet on, the rapist guy, he got spoken to before they even got to the planet. So is this being able to kind of project itself outside the atmosphere of the planet as well? So Nick and I have talked about this a little bit. We have more thoughts since then, but Kyle, we're curious to get your thoughts on this.
This is something that is it might even be a higher order of power, like almost an extra dimensional type of power, because in a way you could theorize that the rapist guy that got spoken to before they were even on the planet, we may be getting subtle hints, as Nick pointed out. Sorry, I'm going to tie a lot of threads together. We may be getting hints that the Mithraic civilization or whatever, or the civilization that gave the Mithraics their technology, is maybe from this planet. It's one of their colonies. And so it gave it to humanity. And what we're seeing here is that perhaps they're so advanced that as long as you are in possession of their technology, they're able to influence you, right? Like perhaps there's some sort of ghost in the machine that they implant there themselves, right? And it's this voice, it's this pervasive voice that perhaps could be a collective consciousness of some kind, could be some sort of just so sort of cool. Like
I didn't even think about it like that, because everyone that's listened to it was connected to a pod, right? Because Marcus was in the pod, Paul was in the pod for I forget how many years.
Oh, and Mother was connected to the pod as well.
Mother connected. Yeah. So Father and Campion technically would be the only people that are clean.
Right. And so it's pervasive across technological boundaries, physical boundaries, right? Like spatial boundaries. And that's the thing is, let's not forget, Mother was inseminated virtually. Yeah. And then she bore that child, let's call it, in the physical world, in reality, right? So it could be this higher dimensional sort of consciousness or race, right? That's doing this.
Oh, I like that. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, like, I didn't connect
that, I guess,
I mean, because everybody, like you said, Nick's pointing out too, everybody except for Campion has been plugged into the machine at one point or another. That's heard the voices so far. The rapist guy, the bearded dude, and then we get everybody else, including Mother, except for Campion, because Campion was hearing voices at the end of the season, right? So
yeah, so when we're gonna dive into some theories for next season, because obviously we're gonna talk about now there's atheists coming to the planet and they're not connected to the same machinery. So I'm curious what's gonna happen once they land. Is Mark is going to lead the charge to convert them all to the belief. Like, and we're going to see like what's going to happen with the kids, because the kids are now up north in that weird haunted place, I want to call it, I guess, for now. And yeah, so I'm super stoked. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about which isn't going into spoilers, where season 2 is going to happen or anything like that? Anything else you guys want to make connections to?
So
I mean, some stuff to bring up in the next video, but I think I've talked about most of the stuff here.
And what did you guys think of the kid actors? I think that's always like a harsh, like not a harsh thing, but it's always a thing with shows, like when they have kids acting and they have to portray emotion and stuff like that. What did you guys think of the kids in this show? Do you think they got the points across?
I mean, I definitely feel like they serve their purpose just fine. I mean, obviously Campion has a lot more lines than any other child actor. I mean, I think the two things that you try and say when you're a director or planning stories, you don't have kids, you don't have animals. They're just really hard. I'm not saying kids are like little animals, but it's like, it's really, really hard. The best like kid acting I can think of as far as an ensemble cast would be the Goonies, at least from my growing up. And I remember Richard Donner, the director of that film, like you could just see him just being completely just tormented by Corey Feldman and some of these kids. He's like, oh God, just please do the lines, so it's kind of a hard thing. But I mean, they definitely did a fine job, but at the same time, it's hard to have them be convincing at the same. If you guys want to see a very amazing audition, the kid that played Elliot in E.T., he's sitting down with Steven Spielberg in the background, and he's doing his final audition. At the end of it, he's like crying and everything. And at the end of it, Steven Spielberg's off camera. He goes, "All right, kid, you got the job. You're amazing," basically. But aside from that, I mean, you get these child actors like Kirsten Dunst in Interview with the Vampire. She was young. Every now and then you get these child actors that are just amazing. Natalie Portman in The Professional, but it's really hard to get really, really good child actors, but I think they do a fine job. And this is not meant to be a Hollywood level budget, right? HBO Max, you think of their content as really, really ultra high end and everything. And I feel like they maybe didn't have the exact same budget as some of those other things like His Dark Materials, stuff like that, but still very, very good. So I think they were perfectly good for what they needed to be. What about you, Kyle?
I would agree. They, of course, like as John said, it is hard with child actors, and of course so many, but they did well enough to where they didn't detract. They didn't take me out of the story. So I mean that's already a plus in my book.
The one I really dug was Tempest. She was pregnant. I really liked her storyline and stuff, and I was just really bummed her storyline kind of fell off towards the end.
She's almost like a young adult, though. She's not like a kid actor. She's like a young adult. But yeah, you're right. She's very good storyline, and her thoughts on it and things like that. Yeah,
I was really digging that. Okay, so you know what? I'm trying to remember this. When Paul heard the voice and he burnt those cards, do you know what those cards were? Because we know Mother looks at them and she sees visions and stuff when she looks at the cards and stuff like that. But do you think he was told to erase the cards or to burn the cards, or you think he did it like out of like, this is not of Saul's will or Soul's will, and he like burnt them?
What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I think it was because of Soul's will. I think.
Okay.
I mean, because Paul's really impressionable right now. It seems he's still.
I mean, he shot his mom, or not really his mom. But
he's slowly being deprogrammed, but he's still very much under the thrall of that belief system. Right?
And I really like the character Sue too, his mom. I was really digging
she
her
plays a very good part.
I hope she's not dead.
Yeah.
I doubt. I mean, she's one of the strongest characters for sure. So I'm curious to ask you guys about this. This is not a season 2 thing, but do you think that they weren't sure how the season 1 is going to be predicted? You can't really count on multiple seasons to tell your story, because if it doesn't get picked up for more seasons, you're kind of out of luck. Do you think they on purpose made this first season a lower budget season as far as not having a huge amount of characters? And now they're hinting at season 2, and they're talking about a whole other colony of atheists coming in. Do you think they planned on this? Okay, we need to prove this is a good show in season 1, and then we can expand it out. Because honestly, I almost feel like the more people they introduce, the less impact this small initial colony of mother and father and the kids is going to have. And it could get too, and we've said this about a number of shows, but it could get too complex to really kind of effectively tell the stories. Do you think that this was a purpose thing, or that's just the natural evolution of their story they're telling?
So I would actually counter that with another question: is what in your mind is a large cast?
Well, that's a good question too. I mean, I would think if you're having a group of kids, I think this show could have been just fine with just mother and father and the kids, and maybe just a few people from the other ship. But we keep finding more people from the ship that, you know, as the season went along, and then we're getting that whole other ship of the atheists. So to me, I guess it depends on how many characters they bring in from the atheist colony. But if you bring in, let's say, how many people were in the crash landed ship? Like maybe 7 or 8 or 10 or something like that. Yeah. If you bring in another group of 10, I feel like that would be getting to be too many people to track.
That's a good point, actually.
Unless they're just food for the snake to get bigger. Because the snake has to feed on blood, and now a whole ship of blood just came right to him, free all this donors. I mean, eat up. I mean, he's getting so big. You think he'll ever be the size of a planet or a ship? You know,
well, you see those huge holes, right? You see the huge holes that and
we have skeletons. Dug. We have giant skeletons of big snakes. So the snakes got extinct, maybe because they ran out of food. Or, you know what I mean? Or maybe they have to leech on or use their mind powers. And because of the de-evolving of the Neanderthals there or something like that, where they had to do that as a survival tactic so they wouldn't be preyed upon. I don't know. You know, I'm just throwing out some stuff, like juggling it. But and then those creatures, the mother and father, the creatures they started catching and eating, they said it was human. Right? They were like, they were like, we can't tell the children what they've been eating. Yeah. So is that the final stage of them devolving to the form where they can survive and not be affected by the snakes or whatever?
That might be.
Well, I mean, they've devolved. We don't know if it has to do with, you know, the snakes or whatever.
Or the higher power or the planet.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like the planet is alive itself and the core isn't really magma. It's just magma. Maybe it's just his brain, and they went through his brain
and Kyle, this is a really quick question for you.
That brain looks very much like lava. Sorry.
Liquid hot magma. Have you seen the movie Solaris? There's a Russian version and a U.S. made version, but the Russian version is like a really long movie, but it's supposed to be a very famous sci-fi film. Have you ever seen that?
No.
I started to watch it. I didn't realize it was like 4 hours long. I'm like, man, this is kind of a slower burn. But anyway, it's supposed to be one of the best science fiction films. It's an older Russian film, but the whole idea in that, and it's not a hidden spoiler or anything, but the planet has like a consciousness to it. I'm like kind of wondering, is the whole planet like a consciousness? I'm kind of curious. So that could be interesting.
Very interesting. It could be. Or maybe we're getting a taste of it right now with Raised by Wolves.
Right. But we have that whole temple as well. So we'll get into that stuff and predictions and spoilers in the next video, right?
So Kyle, how good are you with like Roman mythology and stuff?
So actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I noticed I'm like Mithraics, that sounds familiar, and I'm like, yes, the Mithras cult. In ancient Roman times, I'm like, okay, so I actually started reading up on it because I'm like, well, if they're Mithraics and they're praising Sol, I'm like, this sounds like that. So I like did like more research on that, right? And just like, it's interesting because I don't know if this was a conscious move with the creative team, but there's very little evidence to support any overarching beliefs of the Mithras cult because there's no written evidence. Yeah. The only evidence they have is very specific, what I would call set pieces, right? There are 3 events in the myth of Mithras that are common throughout all the temples that are scattered throughout Italy and some of Southern Europe, right? Which is like, one is like dining with the sun or something like that. The other one is the taking of the bowl, kind of, and then there's a third one that's escaping my memory.
They're very Knights of Templar kind of beliefs kind of thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. Very Byzantine-esque. Yeah.
See, John, I told you it was based off of something real. I thought it was.
No, I had read that as well after the season was over. I hadn't... Greek and Roman mythology is some of my favorite reading material when I was in school, but I hadn't covered it in a long time, and so I was just reading basic articles on the series and what other people thought, and they're like, oh yeah, some of this goes back to Greek and Roman mythology. And
they have the whole Romulus thing too, right?
They do, which ties into the Roman creation myth. And again, to sort of drive that point home is Mithras was actually a cult based around the military. A lot of soldiers worshiped Mithras, right? And they belong to that fold. So it kind of makes sense why the Mithraics are very militaristic in their religion. So yeah, one of the things I really liked about Raised by Wolves is how technology was portrayed, especially how you learn about it in the like the sort of like world building later. So I realized like right away that it's what I like to call simple forms contain complex innards. Right. So like we get a lot of this with like the spaceship designs and even the shuttle. Right. It looks like a coach's whistle. Right. A very sleek sort of like one piece like sort of ship. But once you see them like sort of take apart panels and stuff and you see the technology inside, it almost looks techno-organic in its complexity. Right. So you kind of see these really like complex circuits that don't look quite machine, but not yet quite organs yet. It's really interesting, especially with how their UI interfaces look. They're really cool. Like they're really I feel they're really ahead of the curve, right, in terms of depicting that. It, you know, as you learn more of the story about how they were sort of handed that technology, it made more sense because I'm like, this is supposed to be in the year like 2158 or something, right? I mean, this isn't too far removed. This is only 150 years in the future, right? I mean, and this looks like really advanced technology, right? Just given the rate at which we're going right now in present time. And then you go like, oh, it was handed down to them from some mysterious books, right? It's like, okay, so he made a leap in that sense. So you're like, okay, that makes more sense now. And it was really interesting. I just enjoyed the aesthetic of how they portrayed technology.
Do we know if the atheists had that kind of technology too, or no? Was it just granted to the Mithraic?
That's interesting.
Because it seems like they're freaked of the machines and of the robots. They're like, don't trust them. Like, stay away from him. Like, don't look at the eyes. Like, you could tell there's like a lot of like, you know, like fear from their technology and stuff. So
it's almost an inversion.
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, maybe they still had shotguns and bullets compared to like the laser guns, pew, 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 kind of thing. So
no, like, I mean, they had. They had some interesting tech because, I mean, just of how they apprehended Mother in the first place, right? But yeah, they definitely seem more like guerrilla fighters that are utilizing other people's tech rather than their own.
Yeah, they're like whatever scraps they can find and duct tape together, kind of thing.
Which is funny because to me, I would have thought that the atheists would have been having less technology because they're rejecting those ideas, but then you have the necromancers that came from, you know, that camp. So it's kind of interesting. So I mean, it's a different take on, you know, what you would usually consider that. So it's kind of fun.
But you never know. What if the leaders of the followers of Soul, what if the actual leaders were actually atheists and it flipped the other way around, where the leaders of the other ones, you know what I mean? You never know with the twists, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that'd be crazy.
Yeah, usually there's a break from a certain way of thinking. So I mean, the atheists very well just might have broken off from the religious people at some point and said, hey, we don't believe in this anymore. We don't support them. That's how you got from Catholicism, how you got Lutheranism, like Martin Luther, Reformation, and things like that. So yeah, all that stuff.
Be sure to follow Kyle. He has amazing artwork and a lot of cool sci-fi stuff. He's also working on a cool little novel. Follow him to stay updated on Instagram, and we'll leave all the links underneath.
All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this with our special guest, Kyle. If you want to get more material, definitely check out our channel. We have a lot of deepfakes. We have a lot of episode reviews, a lot of visual effects breakdowns, a lot of content. Check out AsArt.space for the audio and video links, merchandise as well. And we're going to be doing more videos on Raised by Wolves. We're going to get into a kind of spoiler predictions where we think the show is going to go. So check that one out. We'll see you on the next AsArt.